This is going to be an unboxing video of a sort, but rather different from any that I've done before. This is a package I received today from Marcellus Hall. Marcellus Hall is someone who I went to art school with. We were in the same class, fairly small school, so everyone knew each other. And we both ended up in New York City, in the East Village. And I feel to some extent like we sort of had parallel lives in that we both graduated from the same school at the same time. We both graduated from the same department, the illustration department at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. And we both ended up in New York City working on illustration and also doing music. I was in a band in the East Village actually several bands in the East Village for a while as a drummer. And Marcellus was in several bands as well. Railroad Jerk is one. There was another one called White Hassle. And he continues to do music to this day under his own name, Marcellus Hall, I believe, and then possibly some other projects. What I find most interesting about all of this is that while we both started out kind of doing on the same track, kind of doing the same two things, Marcellus, from the very beginning, completely did it right, and I completely did it wrong. So my version of being in a band was a friend of mine who ran into a guitar player at a bar, decided he wanted to start a band, and they went through their friends who played instruments, and they realized that neither one of them knew any drummers. And my friend happened to know that I was a very good, self-proclaimed genius air drummer. In middle school, I could air drum all the parts to all the John Bonham songs in the Zeppelin catalog pretty accurately, as far as I was concerned. And so this guy knew that, and so I was hired as the drummer for that band in the early 90s. So I ran down to the local music studio, rented some time, and for a few weeks sat there and taught myself drums. Basically made cassettes of all my favorite drum tracks and played along to them, bashed my brains out along to these favorite tracks on cassette. And then I played in bands, and it was a fucking great time. I recommend it to anyone who has the ability or the inclination to do it. Play music with other people. It is awesome. But I never once considered myself a professional musician. I was never great. I was good on stage. I had a lot of fun in practice spaces. I would choke to some extent in studios for recording. Marcellus was great. He got signed. His various projects, he put out lots of records, did great shows. He was the primary mover and shaker in the bands and the lead singer, guitar player. And then in illustration, we also had these sort of parallel paths, which he did right and I did wrong. In illustration, when I got to New York, I started doing illustration for scholastic books, which I don't know about today, but back in the day, you were, as an illustrator, at least on my level as an illustrator, I was a work for hire, and I got really very little artistic freedom. Pay was pretty lousy, and the end result, granted, it was scholastic. They were designed to be very inexpensive, very affordable for anyone, but the end results were pretty crappy, sort of newsprint printed kids books, very throwaway books and activity books, things like that. I did a bunch of those and totally lost interest in it. It was a lot of work for very little money and a lot of frustration. And pretty quickly after that, drifted over into the hi-fi business to complement my to complement my playing in bands and such. Whereas Marcellus Hall started doing illustration and started getting the ultimate gigs, and he has had countless illustrations, including covers, I'm pretty sure, several covers, appearing in the New Yorker magazine. And that's about as good as you can get if you're a New York City illustrator. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago on Facebook, I noticed that Marcellus was showing this work, and he would show a couple of pages at a time of this work. So this is a booklet, little stapled binding, Multiplicity, from a few years ago, I guess. And it said in the Facebook post that it was printed on a risograph, which I didn't know anything about. But I love these textures. And the art is beautiful. His work is gorgeous. There's an incredible flow to it. Amazing character. He's always publishing pages from sketchbooks and things like that of very New York City scenes, sketches of people sitting at cafes or riding the subway, and this is beautiful. And the risograph printing is really kind of cool. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to reading this, and I will post a link to whatever I can find for Marcellus for his music down below. We've been listening to one of his more recent albums in the background. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye.